Hello, everybody. It's Friday, which is a different day for us.
It is.
We're back with Howe Ergonomics, and I thought I'd liven the place up with a bit of colour today. You see, I normally do my black, but I thought I'm feeling really positive about the message that's getting out there at the moment in terms of ergonomics and working. So I thought, I'd give off some of that ergonomic vibrancy that's happening out there at the moment.
Is that a Hawaiian t-shirt as opposed to a Hawaiian shirt, or?
Yeah. Well, apparently it's super dry, which is good because you don't really want to wear a wet t-shirt.
Super dry. Sponsoring the show. We need to get them to sponsor the show, don't we?
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Is this where you stay? You will then say, if anyone out there who knows anyone at Super Dry, get in touch.
If you know someone that's super dry, if you are someone that's super dry, and you would just like a shout out every week on this show, because you just need to send me and Stephen some clothes.
Yeah,
that's it.
Although the only thing I wouldn't want to admit live, Graham, is with Super Dry what size I need. You have to, because they're very, very small. So I'll tell them that. I have to go extra large in Super Dry.
Do you? Yeah. No, this is extra large. Yeah. But it's one of those, isn't it? It's a bit like I'm not sure whether we should talk brands. There's another reputable clothing company as well, where whenever I go in their shop and you try something on, it's like a extra large or a large or whatever, and you go,
this will fit.
Yeah, this will fit. No, it doesn't. That's actually, this is a really great. This is a really great ergonomic conversation. It is something that I've talked about on posts before now, which is the ergonomics of manufacturing of clothes. It's dreadful, because we do have, per se, an industry standard, so to speak, right? There's a sizing guide out there.
Yeah.
And why? And that's another thing that's confusing, isn't it? Right? You have European sizing, American sizing, UK sizing, and then you have different sizing for ladies and men, right? Yeah. Understandably, but I mean, it gets confusing from that point of view. But then, even within those sizings, there's so much variation. Yeah. So, it's the same with my wife when she buys clothes as well. I mean, some shops, I'm not going to say what size because that would be inappropriate, and you never talk about a lady size. But there were some shops.
Well, you talk about it once, you just wouldn't do it again.
No, never again.
Yeah,
ever. But there are some shops where she is one size, and then another shop where she can be 2 or 3 sizes smaller, and you just think that's just daft, isn't it? How can that be right?
Yeah. Well, we just said before we came on air, Graham, I might have to nip off because I was expecting a parcel and there was no one else in the house. Again, going on sizes. So my youngest son, who is 10, needs a new helmet for BMX tonight. So extra small. He's having to have a medium-sized adult helmet. Yet he doesn't have a big head. So again, you're talking about sizing. And again, one of the things that's come, I guess, tying back into home shopping and ordering from home is the ordering of the wrong size and sending it back. I would never, ever have thought I'd have to buy him a medium-sized adult helmet for a 10-year-old. But that, going off all the things, that's what he's had to have. But if you were to just go on and look for what you were looking for, you wouldn't think. You'd think maybe extra small at a push. So it is very, very confusing, isn't it, as to what's out there for sizes of everything, as to what do you buy, whether it's clothes, whether it's other things. And again, that all then ties into ergonomics, doesn't it? It comes back to, you need to get the size or the device or the accessory that works for you, not necessarily what the badge on it suggests you would need.
Yeah. Can I just ask your opinion while you're on?
Yeah.
Okay.
About the shirt?
No. So
okay, I like the shirt.
My wife's out shopping.
Okay.
So She said, listen, this is what happens, isn't it? Right? She's obviously put these toys on the floor of the shop. So there's a foot in the so
okay.
What do you think of these? The Mario are £10 each, Dino Fingerling £7.50. So yeah, what do you think my youngest would like out of these?
Okay.
Oh, now why is it not? Oh, that's it. Right, there we go. Well, I think he'd like, but yeah,
both. Isn't the answer both? He'd like them both. He might like one more, but if the question is which one would he like, the answer is both.
Yeah, I'm going to say both.
Yeah, get that message sent out, Graham.
That's important, isn't it?
Priorities.
But actually, we were in a supermarket this morning doing the odd, shop, and we were discussing that. We were discussing that in the supermarket this morning because it actually started around a conversation around Calpol or other paracetamol based liquid products are available
for kids. Yeah.
For kids. Yes, I did get both photos. Thanks. Yeah, both. Yeah. Both means both. Yeah. Both means, I suppose there's 2 photos and there's 4 products. But yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yes, all 4. That's right. But the thing is, on the packet or on the box, it says suitable for 6-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But again, my boy who's 5 now, but will be 6 shortly, is immeasurably smaller than my daughter who's 7.
Okay.
I mean, height-wise, body size, height-wise, differential. I mean, we're talking,
foot and a half.
In
old language.
And my wife said, quite rightly, well, shouldn't they do it on weight?
The ability of the body to sort of digest and cope with the medicine, as opposed to how old they are.
Yeah, because if you've got that much differential, and all of this anthropometrics, sizing, etc., and we'll come on talk a little bit more about it in a second. But this is fundamental to ergonomics. If you're talking about these areas in everyday life, some of these measurement factors are wrong, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because quite clearly, what a little skinny chap that's right down here is able to absorb safely within his body, compared with someone that's a foot and a half taller and has got more. It's the follow up.
I'll be back. I'll report.
He's gonna go and get the next parcel. Now this could be really quite exciting. We're going to find out what that parcel is in a minute. Yeah, there he goes. So yeah, I don't know what you think. I don't know whether you've got any opinions on this, but size wise, does it? I mean, do you really think that some of the ways that we measure different things, whether it's absorption of different types of medicine or whether it's clothes, do you think we need a little bit of a rethink in terms of those gauges, in terms of those scales? If you've got any opinions on this, please do let us know. We'd really be up for your opinions on that this morning.
Apologies for that.
No, what was it?
That was my replacement golf club.
Oh, it's arrived.
It's arrived. So I played
about this.
I played golf last Sunday. My favourite club, 6-iron. Sorry if you're not into golf. Broke, and then there's a competition tomorrow that I'm in, and I didn't have my favourite club, and I bought one off eBay, and it said it was coming on Monday, but it just arrived. So we have BMX helmet and golf club. So that's the good news. So apologies for leaving the live broadcast.
Now, Volker, you said I thought ergonomics has to do with a rising I think that means consciousness for body and mind, using the right tools. What are you talking about? Well, ergonomics is actually about the law of science between somebody and their environment. Okay, ergonomos. That's what ergonomics comes from. And how big people are, how you measure people, how you size people against other things so that you can build solutions which meet the populace's answers is part of it. All of those things are to do with ergonomics. Do you know that the color of something and how people psychologically accept something for its color and its aesthetics, that is part of ergonomics.
I think, Graham, one of the things, I know we've touched on this before, is the actual word and the use of the word ergonomics. You know, something by definition cannot be described as an ergonomic chair or an ergonomic table, can it? I mean, I remember when I started with Backer coming up to 3 years ago, one of my first meetings was with industry legend Guy Osman, and he spoke to me about one of the first things he mentioned was the use of the word ergonomic, and it still is commonly, frequently used in the wrong context, isn't it? And again, we've touched on this before, but by definition, a mouse cannot be ergonomic.
Oh, Guy Osman's written some great blogs on this.
Yeah,
over the years, and absolutely right. You know, and if you go via LinkedIn and look at some of the ergonomic groups that are on LinkedIn, you will find some really good writing on LinkedIn about what ergonomics really means. But there is some contention with that. There are people that still would argue that it's fine to actually apply the term ergonomic to a particular product because they feel that it has been through a design process made into something that is ergonomically correct for people. And I understand that, but in general, ergonomics is about finding a solution to enable someone to work more comfortably or more productively within their environment. And therefore, you know, the products that are part of that solution, or the elements that are part of that solution, are just that. They're just elements.
Yeah,
they're adjustments. They're elements. They're bits and pieces which help the overall situation become more ergonomic.
Yeah,
you know. So no, thanks for that, Volker. Thanks for throwing that in there, because I think it's important that we discuss this. It's something that we will come back to time and time again. So is your 6 iron that you've got in terms of improving the ergonomic of your golf playing? Have you tried it out already, or is it still in this packaging?
It's still in the box. I'm hoping it's the same one that I've used for a number of years, so fingers crossed it will be. So, and in fact, I'm assuming it was the golf club. It was in a long box that would house a golf club, but knowing me, it'll be something else that I've ordered that I've totally forgotten about. So, yeah.
But they've sent you a putter instead of a 6 iron.
Yes.
And you'll just whip it into your bag tomorrow, get out on the green, and then go,
whoops.
Yeah, that's not going to have quite the same desired effect. No. Just talk me through it a minute. Why is the 6 iron your favourite club?
I don't know.
I mean, it's in the middle of the range of irons.
Middle of the range. I think it's to do with the length of the club just sits nicely with my posture when I lean over.
See, so ergonomics.
And the face and the angle of the club just sits nicely. So I think it's just a number of things. Some of them psychological, but some of them actual physical. So I think it's the length of that club just sits nicely with how I hold the club and my posture. So it always has been. And then you can imagine my sheer horrors. I took a shot last week and there was a phew noise, and the golf club suddenly felt really very light as the head was flying 50 yards down the middle of the fairway.
So talk me through this very, very quickly, and I do apologise for anyone who's not really into golf. So a short par 3, for example, would you literally tee up with the 6?
Oh no, a short par 3, probably a 9 or a wedge. So a 6 iron, to me, I'd be looking to probably hit it about 170 yards. That'd be my club for about 170. So
okay, so a longer par 5 off with a driver.
Yeah.
And then the 6 iron comes out.
Then the 6 iron, but I wouldn't get on the green. Hopefully it would be a drive, a 6 iron, and maybe an 8-9 or wedge, something like that.
Yeah, and then a putt.
On the basis that I've managed to keep it straight, which happens very infrequently, it's probably off in the bushes or the hedges, and to be honest, it's probably 8 shots by the time I get to the green. But that's the theory behind it, anyway.
Oh, well, there you go. So for anyone that's not really into golf, you go and have a look at that. You know, find out a little bit more. It's a really interesting. I think it's a really intelligent game.
Played by, well, it should be.
Yeah,
it's a very infuriating game. When you're like me, you don't maybe have the most patience. Me and golf really are not the best bedfellows, but occasionally it happens. That's why you keep going back, on the basis it will be that day that it all comes together. The fact that 9 out of the previous 10 days haven't, you come back for that day that it will happen. So I always enjoyed playing golf. I haven't done it for years, but had golf lessons when I was young. I started off naturally left-handed. Here's another ergonomics thing. Started off naturally left-handed. My dad's left-handed. He insisted that I learnt to play. Are you left-handed, or you actually took the left-handed posture at golf?
I naturally took the left-handed posture at golf.
Okay.
My dad gave me lessons to learn to play right-handed.
Did he not like left-handed golfers?
He is a left-handed golfer. He just felt it would put me at an advantage to learn to play right-hand. And then told me that what I should do is then carry a couple of left-handed clubs in my bag.
Yeah. Wow.
So that I could actually play both hands.
Which could be useful if in certain positions near a tree where you can't get a swing with a right-handed club, but if you address the ball left-handed, you could then do it that way. Absolutely.
Yeah. See? The science of golf. There's definitely some ergonomics in there. Definitely some ergonomics. So it'd be really interesting to know if anyone's actually ever done or been involved in some ergonomic studies with golf. They must have done. I mean,
you do go and get custom fits if you're really, really serious. When you go and get your golf clubs, you can get custom fits, and they do proper, cameras and studying and all that sort of stuff, and they can sort of adjust to a degree the clubs around you based on what they see. So it's not, yes, of course you can buy them off the shelf, but you can have some adjustment made. So there is, and it'd be interesting to find out a little bit more about how they do it all, wouldn't it? If we could.
Now listen, folks, we've got some exciting news coming next week, so do come back and stay tuned for next week. Our show will be on Wednesday next week, because we do love to throw it around a little bit.
Absolutely.
So we'll be on Wednesday next week at 10 to 11. 10 to 11 next week. But we will have some news from a manufacturer about a brand new product that's come out.
Sounds good.
And just to give you a little taster of that, if anybody here is a big driver, and by that I'm not talking about golf again, I'm talking about on the road
or HGV drivers.
Yeah, HGV drivers, anyone that's out on the road doing a lot of miles for as a rep, a consultant that's going to visit a lot of clients or whatever. Make sure you're tuning in next week to hear about this brand new ergonomics product. Nearly slipped into my own bad life. Yeah. Tut. Now listen, you picked out a really good, and I saw it in your post yesterday. You picked out a really good story. Tell me about it.
Study on the BBC website, or it's reported on the BBC website about people wouldn't be returning back to the office full time. I mean, as if that's news to us. But it was really interesting that, again, there's more and more studies being done, again confirming what we knew. But actually, it looked like in reality it's going to happen. Full time. We are seeing people now getting back into, I'd say, more sort of regular patterns now, wouldn't you say, Graham? I think once we've got back into September, offices started to open, children back at school, freeing people up. So yeah, it was confirming what we've discussed, really, that the study that was done, and high percentage of people were not expecting to be back 5 days. And our old friend Mr. Hybrid was being quoted that it would be some sort of hybrid piece. It was interesting that they were doing, there was a bit of a comparison between what employees would want and what managers would want. So again, that leaning of managers potentially trying to encourage more that return to the office. There was the reference from our old, a couple of banks, I think, were referenced. I know we've discussed that in the past, haven't we? About banks sort of thinking or saying that working from home or hybrid isn't good for their culture. Again, that got a reference, but very, very towards the end of the article. In other words, we acknowledge what you're saying. However, the mainstream thought is not people being back in the office 5 days. It will be this hybrid situation that we've all come to enjoy, love, experience, whatever it would be.
Well, I thought it was incredibly interesting timing, given that we, at the same time, we'd had the kind of Boris's update and government response to potentially, because we don't still completely know, but potentially what could be on the agenda for the winter months. And the concept that we more than likely will be encouraged to do home working through the winter months, less people traveling into the office, and we could see a return to mask wearing and social distancing to try and avoid another lockdown. I think the ultimate aim is to try and avoid another lockdown through winter.
Absolutely.
So that's really, really interesting that the two almost came out, that story and the government response was almost the same day, I think.
I mean, the numbers, Graham, just to sort of put, we're talking here some of the context, but the study showed that it was about 1,700 people were sort of interviewed for this, but about 70% of people thought people would never return to the office at the same rate as they did previously. So it was quite interesting to see those numbers. I mean, it was almost 80% of senior business leaders actually thought that would be the case, but it was 70% of the general public. I mean, to tell you what's quite interesting, I've been out this week every day, getting back into the habit of going and seeing people and talking to people face to face. But the interesting was I found the roads very busy.
Right.
And I'm putting this down to, and this is just my sort of, there's no sort of exact science on this, but I'm putting it down to people aren't totally comfortable with public transport, because just having a nose round as you're driving, the vast majority of cars that I've seen this week in driving within business hours have been single occupancy. So I think there's people are slightly reluctant to go back to getting on the bus or the train. And I think people are going, well, I need to go back to the office. I'm being encouraged. However, I'm not 100% comfortable with getting on the bus or the train or the underground. And therefore, car volumes are up. And it's almost paradoxical, isn't it? We talked about the environmental benefits from working from home. But actually, if you can't get the confidence back in public transport, you're then going to negate that, because there's fewer people going into the office, but you're actually putting more cars or vehicles on the road because people aren't comfortable with public transport. So at some point, there has to be some sort of big push around that, I think, is to getting people back into that mode of transport. Otherwise, you're going to come out with a bit of a negative from all of this. There's an opportunity for a positive, but it could end up being a negative, couldn't it?
I think you're right about the public transport thing. My wife and one of her friends went shopping in Exeter and went from Axminster station the other day. And when I went to pick them up, compared with the droves that would normally come off the train, there was a splattering of people that came off the train. And she said, yeah, no, it was quite empty on the train. And then actually, just a couple of days ago, a friend of mine, Stuart, who's involved in the DSA, they started their roadshow again.
Okay.
A little roadshow around the country, and that was in Oxford. So he travelled to Oxford by train and posted a photo on LinkedIn of him in an empty carriage. And I've seen quite a number of posts like that.
I shared a picture with you, I think, a couple of months ago. I went down to Clerkenwell, and from Birmingham International to Euston, there was only me. I think there was me in the carriage on the way there, and I think there were 3 of us on the way back. Normally on a route that would be absolutely, potentially people standing on certain mini journeys amongst that. So that's the thing they're going to have to do next when the time's appropriate is getting people back into public transport, because otherwise it's not going to resolve the issue from an environmental perspective. But also, we talk about worker productivity. If people are spending more time in the car because of traffic jams, they're then becoming less productive, because in essence they're spending more time in the car instead actually of getting on with their job, or they're having to do work longer hours because they've lost so much time because of transport delays. So I think that's one that's going to have to be addressed at some point, because, and also those bodies, whether it's the underground or whether it's the train companies or the bus companies, they employ a lot of people.
Well, I was going to say, excuse me, turning my light on. It's suddenly gone dark outside.
It has gone. Yeah.
Look at that. I was going to say as well that, how much longer can these infrastructures survive without making major cuts as well? Because, it's not sustainable to have one person in the carriage and the train. It's just not. I know that's why they've tried to get as much going as possible. And there's a news story this morning now about I think they're going to start re-looking at planes again. They're going to start re-looking at if you're double jabbed, whether or not you actually have to pay for tests and have the same level of testing, etc., to come back into a country. Because otherwise, if it's too expensive, it's too difficult, there's not enough confidence there, and these things don't get used, at some point we're just going to lose more and more of the infrastructure, and getting it back again is going to be difficult. So I think that's I think that's a major one. So that was a major story.
Absolutely. As you say, you then it does start you thinking, how long have they had that survey in the back pocket? Do you know what I mean? It's just, do coincidences really exist? Boris and all this talk, and then suddenly a survey comes out of 1,700 people. Maybe that one was timed nicely to come out. But again, it was a really interesting sort of piece, really, that, it's backed at what we've been saying, really. So, it's still getting publicity, isn't it, Graham? This is just rolling on and on and on. And as you say, at some point, it's going to become back on the agenda. I mean, I don't know exactly. I'd be sort of, making an assumption myself, but you do start thinking, once we start getting to those dark November and December days, I wonder, like you say, if there will be a re-encouragement for people to work from home.
Oh, this is really interesting. A couple of thoughts. Thanks again to Volker. Clear that it's an artificial scientific view. When it comes down to the user, he needs to feel that it's right for him, his environment, and his productivity. Yeah. Absolutely. Ergonomics has got to be user-centric. It really has got to be user-centric. Do you think Uber-type systems could expand to replace public transportation? Thanks very much for that question, Kimberly. That's really interesting.
Wow.
Can we just think about that a second? Yes, possibly. Now, but there's been all of those issues with people thinking about it. But now, are we going to now turn around on that and actually start thinking, well, maybe some of the things that we were thinking about Uber type services were wrong. I mean, clearly, I've seen throughout this pandemic, there's been a massive surge. I'm going to take it back to food because I'm actually quite hungry, but there's been a massive surge in taxis and transportation being used within the fast food service, haven't there? Right, people, all of those companies that deliver food to you. Once that was allowed back to get, that is growing. Yeah. I know more and more people that are using those services to get their food delivered to them, almost in a way that, I think people that have got used to this mindset of not necessarily going out themselves, but perhaps it's safer actually just to have that one transaction.
Yeah.
That one thing. So within that, I think there's a lot of room for growth in terms of alternatives to pre-existing transportation services, and certainly things like that would be something that could happen. The only thing I would say is here's something to do with that type of that service, is that it isn't everywhere. I live in a fairly big town. I don't know what the population is now, but it's probably around 18,000, something like that.
Okay.
In the middle of Somerset, and we couldn't get an Uber.
You couldn't?
So no, not for love nor money. So there's taxi services around here, but there's nothing of that ilk available here.
You wonder if, because this pandemic has sort of led people to challenge the status quo or what existed before. I wonder what the transport industry will have to do to try and keep those numbers up, to combat the types of Uber service, the fact that it's all app based. I mean, it makes it very easy and convenient, and it's door to door, and you can track it and all that sort of stuff. I wonder what the thinking is among public transport, whether they just can't go back to what it was, can they? They can't just go out trotting. A bus starts in A and finishes up in B 45 minutes later. They're going to have to get a bit creative, aren't they? Because ultimately it's competition for them. So I'd be intrigued or interested to know what the thinking is behind public transport. How are they going to combat or what's their response to the competition they've got? Because, as I say, if it goes back to what it was before, numbers aren't there, confidence isn't there. They've got to do something a little bit different to get their customer base back, haven't they?
Well, I was going to bring up a little story that kind of illustrates this. Actually, the other day, me and my friend booked our second gig of the year. It's actually going to be a third gig because we went to a little local gig as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that last week, and it was really quite scary because it was in the field and no one was doing any social distancing or any mask wearing or whatever. But as you know, I've got Shed 7 booked for December. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to go and see Piroshka, and they were playing Guildford. So originally we're going to go and see them at Guildford, but it's the same day as my dad's birthday, and he's booked a restaurant for the day, and so we've all got to go to that, etc. But then the night before they're playing in Islington in London.
Okay.
Now that means it's going to be a very late night, and the next day I'm going to sit at that meal going.
I sense a baldric cunning plan coming here, Graham.
But here's the thing: that part of London is very, very difficult to drive into and find any kind of parking, and there's really no kind of parking in that area. Hi, Dessa.
Hello.
But so I said, let's look online and let's see if we can find the information that we need to try and get there from the outskirts of London and get in. It was so hard. It was so hard. And in the end, I said, look, we've just got to kind of risk it for a biscuit, book it, and hopefully that the infrastructure will be there to enable us to get in and out, etc. I believe it is, but it took me probably 2 hours of research to kind of clarify that I could actually do it. Now that is so difficult, you know, and this is the problem at the moment, because some of the communication of information is actually really quite difficult to get that clarification on for people. I just think that is just putting people off, and that's it's one of the reasons why we might be seeing some people not using these different infrastructures is not necessarily just because of a matter of safety. It just might be a communication issue. It might just be, I can't actually find the information to tell me that this is running the way that I need it to run in order to be able to book this with confidence in order to do this. So if you've the more effort it is, you know, and so bringing back to what you were saying about, you know, the whole Uber piece or any of those businesses that were really based around technology and a great app, and, you know, making the information available to Joe Public in order to you know, facilitate what they want. Yeah, I believe that all of these people have got to get better at it. You know, if you, it's part of that confidence element. If I'm going to organize a trip here, let's make it really easy to find out what, you know, is this service running? How do I get from here to here? Here's all of the different elements, and maybe tell me as well what's in place. What am I going to find at each of these different bits as well? Where, you know, what's it going to be like when I get on this train? Will it be, you know, how many people are going to be on it roughly? Yeah. So, you know, will there be social distancing? Where would you recommend that I perhaps would wear a mask, and where would it be fairly safe not to wear a mask, etc.? All of these kind of things you could actually build in. Yeah. I mean, that you've probably used train apps before now, where it's asked you during the train journey, give you an update. Is your carriage empty or not? Have you had that?
Once or twice, but not generally on the trains I've used. But I have seen it on one journey in particular. And I've heard of it, but I haven't personally had a huge amount of
And so they're people using people collected data as they go, in order to be able to say, then feed that back out to people and say, actually, this train that's coming in is fairly empty.
Yeah,
you know. And I think that's what people need right now. I think people need that kind of data to say to them, actually, yeah, why don't you get on that train that's coming in at that time? Because, you know, we've only sold X amount of tickets on it.
Or actually go to carriage B and not C, because actually C looks like it's fairly busy. But if you'd be more comfortable with a slightly more sort of socially distant carriage, we would recommend you go to that one.
Absolutely. So, no, I think that's important. So thanks. That's a really, really good question. Thanks,
yeah, absolutely,
for answering that.
And that's almost a bit of a next stage one, Graham, isn't it? Because as we said, it's okay getting to the office. People will work their own way out, but it's the next piece as to how does that working in the office look? How does it become environmentally friendly? How does it become sustainable? Because you cannot have the situation of individuals. Yes, there's less individuals going to the office, but there's going to be more cars on the road. Something's got to be done to really combat that. And yeah, as I say, it's a next step one. But as you say, if we're suddenly getting a big push to working from home again, November, December, January, you know, you're another few months down the line, aren't you, before anything happens?
Listen to that. Love tech that tells me how to get away from other people. Well, in a way, I know what she means.
Yeah.
Yeah, me.
Yeah. What's that? I had a flashback to a film there. There's that in Harry Potter. There's a map, isn't there, that shows where all the people are moving around on like a piece of old parchment. Can't remember what it's called, but do you know what I mean? It's something that sort of shows you where people are, doesn't it? So that's it. That could definitely happen. Yeah.
Good points. Thank you. Yeah, no, thanks for raising the point, Kimberly. It's It's a really interesting point. I just want to finish today by asking you. I mean, you say you've been back out there, etc. And I'd asked you before, sort of, just before we came away for the summer and had that break, what it's like when you go into places. Has that now changed an awful lot? You know, are you seeing still a lot of social, even though now a lot of mask wearing and social distancing is really kind of up to the individual as to whether they do it or not? Are you seeing that happen or not happen?
I think it varies. So if I look at the week I've had this week, so I've had a whole different range of meetings. So one of them was in a coffee shop with someone. So again, we went to a local coffee establishment. Wednesday, I went to see an organisation who usually have 100 people in their offices, but they only had 19, I think. So big social distancing. Now, what they asked, which was absolutely fine, and I absolutely complied and totally agree with them, we wore a mask, we had a coffee, but I wore a mask all the time I was on the premises. There was hand gel available, etc., etc. So that was one example. Saw another organisation yesterday where it was different again, where we did socially distance around a table, but there was no requirement to wear a mask in the building. So it really varies. There's no rule of thumb. So we've gone from no masks in a coffee shop to masks and heavy social distancing to social distancing but no mask wearing. So it literally varies from customer to customer, Graham. I think it's different organizations' interpretation of the rules, what they're comfortable with. And I'm fine with whatever, but it was just interesting to see that real difference between what organizations are doing. And this is where I think I've just seen Odessa's comment. So wore a mask? No.
I think
lower coffee, raise mask. Yeah. But I think that's what, for people who are going out and about, I still think you have to be really prepared. You have to be, and I know it's obvious, but you still need to be taking masks, although you don't have to wear them in shops. You don't know what that company you're going to see, what their rules are going to be. Personally, I still take my own hand gel, although hand gels were available in all of the businesses I went to see. But I will say be prepared that you could be asked for the rules that we've had for the last how long, or some people might be a little bit more tolerant. It depends on what you do. I mean, yesterday we also had an outdoor meeting, so that was we're trying to combine different options to try and make it as comfortable for as many different people. But I think that within all of this, you've just got to respect what other organizations and other individuals want to do, but almost a bit of Cub Scout thing. Be prepared, go prepared that you could be asked to do X, Y, and Z, respect it, but equally, it may not be anything like that when you actually get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So sometimes it isn't about what you are comfortable with; it's about others. I think absolutely, it's about respect for other people. I think it's really interesting because there seems to be some real confusion over it as well, and also what I'm finding around here is, if you go into a supermarket, most people are still wearing a mask. But if you go into a smaller shop, a lot of places will say it's up to you as to whether or not you're wearing a mask. But a lot of smaller shops, people aren't wearing masks. Now, that's in a way, I can understand it because more people frequent a supermarket. But on the other hand, supermarkets are bigger areas. And therefore some of the small shops, there's you could have more people in a crowded space, and yet they're not mask wearing. I'm most worried about anybody that actually needs order as part of their makeup in order to deal with life. I think I'm wondering how this affects some people who are neurodiverse. I'm wondering how this affects some people who are very anxious about being in society, etc. Because actually, when you've got hard and fast rules, everybody's following those, everybody knows what to do.
Yeah.
But when you've got what we've got at the moment, which is seemingly different people doing things at different times, even in different environments. So, you know, you go into the supermarket, the mask goes on. You do the hand gel. You go into a small shop, no mask, and it's all a bit more friendly. And you just think, you know, and then out on the streets, 2 minutes later, people hug. It's so confusing as a message. I just wonder what effect that has on anybody that actually needs to have that structure.
I wonder as well, Graham, whether some of it's about commercial positioning. I wonder if the larger supermarkets need to be projecting a certain image with the masks. I wonder if the smaller businesses, where it's maybe it's someone's own business, where actually one or two people not going in there because of their approach to mask wearing actually has a big impact on their revenue. Where I dare say, if half a dozen people didn't turn up to Tesco's or Morrison's, it's not going to impact them too much. But actually, those smaller businesses can't afford to lose 5 or 6 customers. So I wonder if commerce and plays a part in people's approach to how you welcome people into your retail organization.
But even then, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because actually, if you allow someone into your shop, you know, who's not wearing a mask, does that mean that someone that thinks everybody should be wearing a mask will then not come into the shop because, you know, that person's in the shop without a mask? I think it'll be interesting to know if there are any kind of people studies going on in terms of those kind of behaviors and you know, how it's affecting different groups within society. I think that's going to be really interesting. But certainly I think all of this activity at the moment and the differential in that activity is probably leading to why a lot of people are continuing to want to work remotely or work from home, because it's just that you don't have that dynamic to deal with.
They know what they want to do, but the unknown is, I've no idea when I get on that bus or train or go into the office, I don't have control. I've got no idea what the other people can do. So that's the big question mark, isn't it? And I think until rules get hard and fast again, so you know exactly was going on, I think, as you say, people with neurodiversity has an issue. But I think even people without some of those sort of challenges, it were, I think a lot of people, that unknown is really impacting what they're going to do going forward, whether it's public transport, whether it's the office, whatever it would be, certain shops, certain restaurants, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. We did have Clerkenwell last week again. Did you attend that?
No, I wasn't there last week. I was in Holland last week, so I missed out on Clerkenwell.
Yes. But you must tell us your little Holland story. That was frightening, wasn't it? Stephen messaged me was it about 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock
on Wednesday evening.
On Wednesday evening, prior to him flying out was it at 10?
No, I was flying at 6 on Thursday morning. And I said to you, I still haven't had the results from my test. Now, what was really bizarre about that one, Graham, was I never actually got an email to say I'd passed the PCR test. What they didn't tell you was, which came to me at 3 a.m, so 3 hours before the flight, I went back through all my emails. And what they hadn't told me was they'd created an account for me, and I had to log in to get the result, which I did. So 3:15 on Thursday morning, the printer was going off upstairs, printing off my things. But the weird thing is when I flew back and did the PCR test on Friday, I did get an email to confirm the negative result. So again, this all just throws in the whole pot of confusion, is that I was expecting an email that didn't come and had to go and find it. Yet when I returned, I got the email. So who knows? Yeah. It's just so confusing.
Communication, clarity of communication is the thing that we need to be getting sorted out for people at the moment. That's the thing that's going to get things moving again. That's the thing that's going to help in all of this. And the trouble is, we've had the summer now to sort it out. We're about to hit the winter again. We may get winter weather. we may find ourselves with some kind of restriction again in terms of social movement, etc. What we've got to do is use that period of time to get these communication lines sorted out, ready for spring.
Yeah,
I think that's key to all of this. So we'll be back Wednesday,
10 to 11 Wednesday.
10 to 11 next week. What does your week hold for you this week? Anything exciting?
Weekend or week?
Well, either. That's part of from now until next time I see you.
A lot of calls actually. Actually, one or two people who I'm not actually physically able to go and see, who I'm catching up with next week. So there are one or two people who aren't comfortable with meetings, going back to what we said. So I've got three or four calls in on Monday and Tuesday where I'll be talking through, rather than having a physical meeting, having a virtual meeting. So that's one of, again, the flip side. This week has been a lot of external meetings. Actually, next week it's a lot of people who maybe aren't either geographically in the right place or would prefer to meet still continuing through Teams. So actually, a Monday and Tuesday quite busy with Teams calls. So after a slight variation on what this week's been like.
Couple of quick comments before I give you a last bit of information. So Plus businesses have spent tons of money building infrastructure in to accommodate the current situation that businesses have been created to solve remote work. It's true. It's very true. There's been a lot of businesses that have been created now around remote working. So it can happen. Why don't we see if we can teach the government to communicate clearly rather than through the murkiness of tabloids? That's a contentious issue. But yes, it's true. I don't think the press sometimes helps in that communication, because if they can twist it into a story, one way or the other, but then that murkies the waters. So the thing that I want to leave everybody on this week is coming up on the 23rd. Backer, the company that Stephen works for, they are involved, as are myself and Odessa from A Better Way of Life, with the next health and wellbeing event. It's the first one since we broke for the summer. We have Darren coming to talk to us, who is the human lie detector. I cannot wait to find out whether I'm lying or not to myself. Maybe I am. I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask him about my shirt, and I'll see if I can tell whether he's lying.
Yeah,
I'm going to find out what he's lying.
Are you going to wear that shirt next Thursday?
I maybe, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Maybe.
Unless of course, Graham's super dry, having heard this bombard us with alternative closing garments, which we will be happy to model for them.
Yeah, I'd love a pair of their sunglasses. That would be great.
They're really nice. Yeah.
Hint. I always looking at those at airports.
Yeah.
As you do. But yeah, no, health and wellbeing event. It's the first one of the season. Lots of people already registered interest. We've had I think 118 people already register their interest in it. So do come along. It's in Remo, which means that it's not a Zoom call. You do sit around virtual tables. It's a better way of networking. It's a much better way. You see what I did there? It's a much better way of networking. It's not your 45-second pitch and off you go. It's people actually learning from each other and actually having proper conversations around the table. That's what it should all be about. So if you're interested in health and wellness, and everybody should be on the planet, so whether you are a practitioner yourself or you're involved in HR, occupational health, whatever within a business, do register and come along. It's free. It's between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. on the 23rd. We will make sure that the link to register is in the comments of this program. But for now, thanks for joining us on Wow Ergonomics. We'll be back next week with news of a brand new product for drivers. Stay tuned for that. Bye for now.
Bye.